to rebuild Britain, the United Kingdom, after the Luftwaffe and Hitler's Air Force had bombed London and other cities, and the Second World War had ravished most of Europe. Black people, former slaves, my parents, my grandparents, my ancestors came here to do work that white British people did not want to do and would not do, and in most cases could not do. We became the ancillary workers. We became the people who ran London Transport. We became the bus drivers and the bus conductors and the train drivers. We became the road sweepers. We became the painters and decorators. We became the people who became the foundation of the infrastructure of the rebuilding of this nation. But nevertheless, despite all of that, and being invited here by none other than Enoch Powell. Enoch Powell was one of the great advocates of inviting black people from the Caribbean to come and help rebuild the country. Only for us to come into the country and see signs up on buildings saying no Irish, no blacks, no dogs, and being subject to racism. My father was attacked by teddy boys, and many black people found themselves in perilous times having to avoid racists. In the 70s, many of us who were growing up as young boys on the streets of Britain found ourselves being targeted by the police, who were using an old ancient vagrancy law that they redubbed and called it SUS, S-U-S, where black people could be deemed to be a suspicious person, and we could be arrested on charges of, listen to the kind of charge that we were subject to in the 70s and the 80s in the UK by racist police officers. We were charged with attempted theft from persons or persons unknown, and the police didn't have to produce any person in the court, nor did they have to produce evidence of the thing that we attempted to steal. All they had to do was bring us into court and say that they saw us attempt to steal from a person unknown. They didn't have to produce any evidence, and we would go to Borstal, we would go to prison, we would go to detention centers under that type of trumped up false charge. This is recent history. This is the type of thing that we as black people have faced and continue to face. Windrush. Black people who have given our sweat, blood and tears to make this country what it is. Yet, many of us have got tenuous immigration status. We don't know whether we belong or we don't belong, because the government deliberately set out under Theresa May, the former Home Secretary, to create what they called a hostile environment for black people, so that we would be kept insecure, unsure of our immigration status. Many black people living almost underground in fear of a knock on the door from immigration to deport us from this country back to the Caribbean. Most times, people who have not even been born in the Caribbean, or people who know nothing about the Caribbean. But this is the reality of the racism that prevails to this day. Many of you you would like us to be foolish enough to believe that we're living in a post-racial society where racism is no longer an issue and black people should shut up and get on with it and pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and do what other people do and just get on with it. Why are you always complaining, you black people? Well, it is because racism is still the order of the day.
Yes, it is.
You can pretend all you like. You can write as much legislation as you want, but you cannot change the heart. You cannot change the Constitution, the very nature of a people who racism comes out of them like a web comes out of a spider.
Teach on it. Teach.
You don't have to teach these people racism. It is their very nature.
Come on.
Let me explain something to you.
Go ahead.
You hypocritically claim that this is a multiracial, multicultural society.
Come on, teach.
This is what you claim from your mouth. But you are only happy in a multiracial, multicultural society as long as sitting at the top of it are white people.
Red.
I want you to hear me today, because we know you. We have lived among you for a long, long time. And we can no longer be fooled by your pretense that everything has changed and that today all is equal and that black people are now able to do what other people are able to do. No. We recognize, and by the way, let me say this. We do understand the class divide. We understand that. And we understand that there are some few elite families who control everything. And we do understand also that the masses of ordinary, poor, white people are just as much victims of the system as black, brown, yellow, and red. We understand this. So if you don't feel like you are one of those elitists with a mentality of white supremacy, then please do not put on the hat that I've thrown out there. If the hat don't fit, don't wear it. Because we understand that many Caucasian people, many ordinary white people also suffer under the system. We appreciate this. But nevertheless, you are greater beneficiaries of the evil that has been done to black people than anybody else. That is the reality also. And so you have a responsibility. If you claim to be a good white person, if you claim to be a decent Caucasian, then it is incumbent on you to make sure that as you go through life, that you do justice to all people, irrespective of their creed, their class, or their color. And that you don't go along with the status quo that relegates some people to second class or third class or no class or low class citizenry. Because this is the reality of what is happening in your country. Did you know that your prisons, according to the statistics, black people, people with my complexion, we are approximately 3% of the society. We are a very, very small minority. But we are over 14% of the prison population. We are over 14% of the mental institutions. We fill up these places. Now, some of you will, in your heart, you're saying, well, yeah, that's because you're the criminals. That's because you're all crazy. Oh, really? You know something? I heard somebody say, some reporter was talking to my leader, teacher, and guide, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and he had the audacity to say to Minister Farrakhan that he believed that Nigeria was the most corrupt nation on the earth.
Come on.
And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan beat his backside and told him, how dare you? There is a country more corrupt than Nigeria, and I'm living in it. He was talking about the so-called United States of America. America, Britain, these European nations, your corruption makes the corruption in Africa, the corruption in South America, the corruption in Russia, the corruption in all these other nations, your corruption makes their corruption look like kindergarten stuff. You are the #1 corruptors on the planet. I want you to hear me. Many of you Caucasians in Britain, you kid yourself. I listen to your language, I listen to your talk. Oh, we've got the best police in the world.
Teach, brother, teach.
This is what you say. We've got the best military in the world. We've got the best court system in the world. We've got the best, we're the best, we're the best. And then you go around the world trying to tell other people how they should run their affairs. You know, you're really sick. You have a really sick mentality of white supremacy.
Come on, teach.
How did you become the best military in the world?
Teach.
Did you know that in your history, there is not 1 year, not 1 month, not 1 week that you have not been involved in some war, some place on the planet? You are the warmongers of the planet.
Come on, teach.
Britain, from one end of Britain to the other is 600 miles. It's a very small rock in the ocean. It's so small, it could fit into New York State. That's how small this island is. But you are second only to America in nuclear weapons. You are second only to America as an arms dealer, arms producer.
Teach.
What is it about you that you are so wicked that you export weapons of mass destruction all over the planet?
Come on, man, teach.
You supplied Saddam Hussein.
Yes, they did.
With his chemical weapons. Yes, you did. And we have the evidence to prove it. And then you turned around and attacked Iraq and said they had weapons of mass destruction when you had sent in the inspectors and sent in those people prior to destroy the weapons of mass destruction. And you knew that Iraq possessed no weapons of mass destruction. But Tony Blair, you need to take the B off Blair. Tony Liar produced the big lie. Colin Powell produced the big lie. Condoleezza Rice produced the big lie. George W. Bush produced the big lie. And bombs began to rain down on Iraq in 2003. And many of you, and they called it shock and awe. The arrogance, shock and awe. Dropping bombs on innocent men, women, and children. And many of you think, oh, 2003, oh man, that's history, that's gone now. See, I gotta tell you, because I know your arrogance makes you to believe that what you do is without consequence. See, the government now and the media, and by the way, the media is just as wicked, just as corrupt, just as evil as the military higher-ups who order those young boys and girls in uniform to go and sacrifice their lives for nothing. Or should I say for oil? Or should I say for stolen resources from other people's countries? The media is just as wicked and complicit and leads the charge and leads the choir in the attack of these nations around the globe. Look, man, this is what we're learning. Message to the black man. We're learning about ourselves. We're learning who we are. We are learning that with all the weapons on the planet today, all the guns, all the bombs, all the missiles, all the airplanes of war, you can't find one with a black man's name on it. You can't find one with our name on it. Why is this? Because whether you know it or not, we are the people of God.
That's right.
We are the people of God. You are looking at a holy and a righteous people in your midst. These are the people that you enslaved for 400 years. And the Bible the Bible talks about it. The Bible predicted it. And you think the Bible is talking about some stories of history. The Bible is not a book of history. The Bible is not talking about 4,000 years ago. The Bible is not talking about 2,000 years ago. The Bible is primarily a book of prophecy, talking about today. And whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, we're living in the time of the fulfillment of prophecy.
Yes,